Everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me. Happy Mother's Day. Today is Sunday, May 14th, and this is your weekly video. All right, this is going to be a little shorter video. I really don't have much to update compared to last week's forecast. Last week's forecast performed really well, giving myself an A on this one. I forecast for a slower pace, but chop upwards, and that's exactly what we got. Including a relatively volatile Friday where it was bearish most of the day until a late day rally brought us up into more of a doji looking candle. Coming up this week, we've got monthly options expiration on Friday, and we're continuing to look for a move down, starting at the end of these circles, which, you know, I've got the top green box here drawn starting May 16th, and it could go as late as next week, Tuesday, May 23rd. So sometime between, I think, Tuesday and Tuesday, we're going to see a top of some significance here. We're at some solid resistance with the orange magic level and descending Gann-Fan. This Gann-Fan is anchored to the Mars cycle I talk about frequently here. And we've also seen the significance of these green circles and how when they end, that tends to trigger changes in trend. So we've seen that happen the last couple of times, and we've got a pair of circles terminating here in the next week. So the forecast continues to be for lower prices in heading into late May and June. I think I'm just going to make a little minor update here to this target box as we update it to include this orange magic level here. I think that would make sense to get at least, you know, the span of one orange magic level here and include the range down to about 12,200 for now. We'll see what happens as this progresses, if it progresses. Of course, there's no certainties in this business, but this is the best forecast using the information that we've got. Okay, so with that brief update on the forecast, let's go and take a look at what Time Trades is telling us, starting with the Qs as usual. Now, one of the things I always like to look at here is short-term waves. Haven't looked at these in a while. Short-term waves shows the Mercury and Venus separation, interplanet separation, that's the blue line, and Mercury speed in yellow. That's the yellow line here. So you can see Mercury speed is starting to accelerate as it emerges from retrograde, but we're still coming into a period of peak separation between Mercury and Venus. And this often indicates major pivots, major changes in trend. So I guess what we're looking for up here is some sort of change in trend. It could be a pivot low. There's a chance that we continue to chop up here and make this a pivot high over here. You can see the red clusters in the forecast actually start after the separation peaks on May 30th. So we'll give that some consideration here. You know, it's entirely possible that we do continue to chop up in this form that we have until late May. That's a possibility we need to give some thought to. But I do think that the completion of those green circles that we talked about and on last week's video, and I explained why these circles are important. It's not just, you know, hey, look at these nifty circles. They're important because, number one, the chart is squared, right? We've got the right aspect ratio between price and time. Number two, circles represent price-time equivalence. And this is based on the work of Gann, the work of Jenkins, that you basically get a square out. So if you take the distance of a major swing, that represents a combination of price and time, and then anywhere along the perimeter of the circle is equivalent to that swing. So we are going to get square outs in time and price over here at the completion at the edge of these circles on Wednesday and on Tuesday next week. All right, so that's the basis for the forecast. I do think those square outs will result in a high of some sort over the coming week, meaning that this pivot over here will turn into a pivot low. But there is also the chance that this is a pivot high representing the high price of this cycle, and then we come back down on the backside of this cycle here. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Let's take a look at SPX. SPX is showing some big clusters of pivots. So this is a little different look than the Qs. So we've got a big cluster of pivots here. They're showing as pivot lows in this directional forecast. I do think they will end up being pivot lows in late May. Yeah, we will see. But there's another cluster of pivot lows over here in late June. So we could be looking at an extended period of bearishness here coming into mid to late June. All right, that's SPX. Let's take a look at the Dow. And the Dow is a little bit closer to the SPX. We've got a lot more activity down here on the pivot low lane. So we see multiple clusters of pivot lows. The biggest one is over here, June 7th. We've got a flush down starting right at the peak of this of Mercury-Venus separation here, May 30th. We've got this wave of red starting here, and then additional pivot lows over here. So one comment about this, as we look at all of the pivot lows here on the Dow, is that this is a directional forecast. Okay, so there's 4 probabilities that are forecast: pivot high, move down, move up, and pivot low. One of the things I'm actively working on right now is a non-directional forecast that will only show 2 probabilities. That is the probability of a big move or a 2 standard deviation move, and the probability of a pivot. So it gives no information as to whether it's a pivot high or a pivot low. This, I think, is going to be very useful, and I actually plan on making that the default view. We're going to be keeping the directional probabilities around, but we're going to switch the default view to be the non-directional probabilities, simply because it solves the problem with inversions. And an inversion is when the probability indicates it may be a high, but it turns out to be a low. We got the fact that there's a pivot correct, but we got the direction wrong. So that's one of the things that I like about the non-directional pivots and moves, is that it eliminates that entire class of potential errors in inversions. So that will be rolled out over the next couple of weeks as I work to complete that coding. That's what I'm focused on at the moment. Okay, so that's the Dow, and that's a little monologue on the roadmap and what's happening with non-directional models. Okay, so let's take a look at the dollar, and we can also take a look at metals. Now, the dollar really strengthened here, and we can see there's a nice clean pivot high It's a single bar. I prefer clusters, but it's a reasonable probability of a pivot high nonetheless, May 24th. So we can see the dollar's pushing up, showing some strength here. Again, that's bearish for stocks if that continues. And then we see some weakness developing into June. Let's take a look at the metals, gold and silver. Gold, in line with the strength in the dollar, had a weak end to the week. So it finished with 3 red days. We've got some probabilities of a move up early in the week, but on the whole, it looks like it's going to be in a little bit of a corrective mode here. We've got the a cluster of red probabilities down, ending early June, and also a pivot high as well. So it looks like there may be some down pressure here localized around this peak of Mercury-Venus separation. And then just connecting the dots, we can see a pivot low over here, July 25th. And there's a cluster moves down heading into that potential low. Let's take a look at silver. Silver is showing a bit of a hollow here, and these negative probabilities of move down. Sometimes that indicates potential for a move up into that gap or hollow. We see a couple of small green bars here, which lend some weight to the bullish side of things. But obviously, as long as the dollar is strong, the metals are going to be weak, and it looks like while there may be a chance at some recovery in here, we've got another big cluster of moves down around in early July. So just be very aware of potential for trend changes in late May here. Okay, so that's silver. We've done metals, we've done the dollar. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin. All right, so here is Bitcoin. We're going to turn off short-term waves. We're going to leave on the GAN fans. Bitcoin's having what I would call a healthy correction here. It's staying within these GAN fans that are actually, let me just adjust these GAN fans here because I don't think that's the optimal adjustment right now for them. So one of the things I do like about time trades is just how easy it is to square the chart and get the get a solid aspect ratio between price and time, so that we can see the lines from the GAN fans, which start at pivots high and pivot lows, when we can see these lines line up with price very well. So we can see here that this, I'll zoom in here a little bit. This fan here that starts on August 15th, it contains price really nicely here on September 13th. So that's exactly what I'm looking for when I'm setting the aspect ratio here for Bitcoin. So we can use this one for now. It's very easy to update that. So we can see here that Bitcoin lost these GAN fans here, and we've got a cluster of red here indicating peak potential down moves on the 17th and 18th. So we can see here how this GAN fan here provided support on March 12th. Right now, there's not much in terms of GAN fan support here. One of the things that I would do with this, though, is before jumping to any conclusions like, oh, it's going to go down to 17K just because there's a GAN fan there, I would head on over to TradingView and do some deeper analysis there using GAN fans to add some additional levels of support, and also draw them from things like major lows over here on March 10th to include the latest in the fan information. One of the things about the time trades GAN fans is that there is a bit of a delay to get them drawn because of how the algorithm works. It has to wait a few weeks in order for these fan locations to be confirmed. Okay, so we've got a bit of a move down over here, May 18th, 19th, 20th. So that's something to be aware of. I don't think that it'll come all the way down here to like 17, 18. That would be a bit of an extreme move and kind of out of character over the last couple of weeks for Bitcoin. But I think a further move down heading into here would make sense. And also, on the other hand, you know, as this down pressure peaks on the 18th, 19th, look for a move up on the other side of this, right? So there would be some nice potential buying opportunities over here, especially with the pivot high showing here on June 16th. Okay, we can do a quick look at Ethereum. Ethereum, very similar to Bitcoin. We've got a peak and a move down over here May 17th, and we've got another pivot high over here June 15th, 16th. So that is aligned with the Bitcoin forecast. Let's take a look at Nifty, and then we'll close the call out on this quick update on Mother's Day. So Nifty is tracking up this GAN fan that we talked about last week, continues to be in a pretty bullish configuration. It has not lost contact with this fan here. This is the 2x1 up from 0, anchored to October 26, 2018. So that it seems to be respecting that line pretty well. And we've also got you know, this fan here. We've got a couple of lines here that are acting as guardrails, I guess, for price. In a perfect world, I'd love to see it come up and separate above these GAN fans, and it looks like we've got an opportunity to do that over here in early June. I do think the weakness in the broader market over the next couple of weeks will also affect the Nifty. So even though the forecast is relatively quiet here, we've got some low probability reds in late May. I do think it'll pull back a little bit before it gains some strength, and we can hit these green bars over here starting May 30th. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you're all having a great weekend. Thanks again for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.